We're going to go ahead. We're coming out of a special closed session or a special meeting that we had earlier tonight. So what we're going to do before we start a regular city council meeting, we're moving off of item 5, which was closed session in a previous meeting that started at 5 o'clock, and we have no reportable action. And I'm going to move now to adjourn the meeting that we just got out of at 5 o'clock, and we're going to start our city council meeting here coming up at 7. So good evening. This is the City Council regular meeting for May 21st at 7 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Graham Mejia. Here. Councilmember Kusamoto.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Poe.
Present.
Mayor Edgar.
Here. I ask everybody in the audience to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilmember Kusamoto and stay standing for the invocation by myself. Thank you.
Please join me in the pledge. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this evening. Lord, we just thank you for all the blessings that you put on our city. Sound finances, a great staff, a responsive council, and just excellent, outstanding citizens that have been there that just stay focused on moving our city forward. Lord, we just want to thank you as we get ready to go to Memorial Day weekend coming up the next week or so. We just want to thank you for all the soldiers that have been fighting for freedom over the years, and we just hope that that day we could just memorialize all of the efforts that have been put forth for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Alrighty. I'm going to ask the City Council to join me up front, and we're going to give a couple awards off.
Okay.
What, I don't get to use it?
Karaoke.
Come on in, guys. Yeah, then we'll move out of the way. Okay, first of all, this evening we've got a really neat event going on in our community. And it's, I don't know if anybody knows this, but every Saturday over at the community center, we have a painting class that takes place. It's called a portraiture class. It's been going on for years. And over the years, I don't know about you guys, but if you look into our community book that we put together every quarter and send out, anybody in the community can go over, and all you do is pay a lab fee, and they have a live model, and you get to sit there and practice your drawing and your painting. And you get an expert that comes behind you. For many years, we had somebody in our community that was always over there for years and years. And then when he finally retired, he stepped back. They added a new instructor, and then they called the old instructor back. And this year, they did something really special. They actually had an art exhibit over here at the community center. And so any of you that are familiar with some of the other cities around us, Westminster, Huntington Beach, even down at Sunset Beach, they have a kind of an art show, and they show all the local artists, and they see what they can do. So in our weekly packets, we had an opportunity. We always get all the information of what's going on in the city. And I see on the agenda there that there was a big community art show going on in our community center, and I'm thinking, what the heck is that? So I said, I got to check that out, because as a rookie artist at home, I love that type of stuff. I always said, God, if I had an extra Saturday, I would do something like that. I got to see what these guys actually do. And when I went over there, I had an opportunity to just see an unbelievable amount of talent that we actually have going into that community center. And I would say within Los Alamitos, but actually of the people from everywhere around here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to have the instructor, Yin Lu, come on up here, and because I'd like her to talk about the program a little bit. So first of all, let me just recognize it. Is Yin here? Come on up. So I'm going to have Yin tell a little bit about the program, but the other thing is that once I seen this, they actually give out awards, and the worst thing to do is actually to have a mayor pick the award winner, so I had nothing to do with this. But what they did do, like I said, is they had the previous instructor come back, and he actually rated them, and there was different types of awards, and I'm going to let Yin talk a little bit about that. But I thought, you know what a great thing in the community. I wanted to bring the visibility forward so that we can highlight our local artists, and who knows, maybe we have started something through Yin's work in our community and Parks and Recreation that we could kind of move forward and move the cultural arts forward here in the city. So Yin, if you could tell a little bit about your program and the artists.
Sure. My name is Yang Liu. I'd really like to take this opportunity to thank our city mayor, Choi Edgar, for having us here tonight. And I'd like really give my appreciation to all the council members for this recognition. And I'd like to really thank Emlyn and also Shelley for their team, for their everyday hard work to support this workshop. And all the workshop participants for all these diligent works every Saturday morning. Poetry workshop takes place every Saturday morning from 9 to 12 noon. And each morning we have 2 live models costumed, and we put them on the model stand, and we point our spotlight at them. In that way, we can see the models better, and I mean better, I meant from an artist's point of view. So we can exaggerate, make more contrast, and we see the values, the shapes, and also the color temperature much better under the spotlights. And we have 20-some people to spend 3 hours each morning to put their best effort together to actually draw or paint life models. What is the deal of painting life models? But why I cannot just stay home using photo reference, right, to paint people? There is a huge difference there. Painting life models from life models, we see colors better. Versus from reference photos, we see the shadows in the much dark value. So usually in the dark shadows, we don't see color at all. So and painting life models is a very good way to practice of seeing the values in terms of 3D format. So I encourage you, take this program is put together by the city and lasts for the last 20 years, and is by the people, created by the people, and for the people. I really wish you guys take this opportunity, come to join us every Saturday morning. And this is for every level. Doesn't matter what level you are at. You come to enjoy yourself, enjoy the friendship, enjoying other artists' work, by improving yourself, or I can help you in every detailed way. One-to-one instructions and demos throughout the program. We have, these paintings are the results of the recent art show, and we have a few of our artists here tonight. So, thank you very much.
Ian, if I can have you just stay up here, we're going to go ahead and give out a couple of these awards. And what I'd like to do is have the artists come up and stand by their art, and we will get the heck out of your way, and then we'll take a group photo once. But I just want the community to see these are the people that have been able to, and the work they've been able to do. I think we're being directed to the back. Hold on here.
These paintings are done live from live models. It's not from reference photos. In 3 hours.
All right. Okay, Yin, this is your certificate. Let me just go ahead and hand this to you, and I'm going to go ahead and call out each of the artists and hand them theirs. Next up, Marina Munoz. Martha Lannon. Sharon Hamilton. Maggie Wang. Mary Coromelis. Sandy Candiati. Yeah, and I'm going to mention these other two artists that aren't here this evening. I don't think if they're here, I apologize. Steve Wright and Steve Wright and Anita Berlatcher. So, City of Los Alamitos, these are our artists and these are their works. Congratulations.
Stay up for a photo. Stay up for a photo.
You guys aren't getting on that.
Group photo.
We get a photo.
Can I stick my head up and pop their picture?
Right there in the middle.
You stand there, maybe turn sideways a little bit. Again, everybody, you do that, or you have to go down to one knee.
I'm in. I'm right here.
No? Okay.
I'm in right here. Right between the two of them.
That's
Should I
I
smile?
ducked down. Good thing Troy's tall. No one can really block him.
We have 4 cans season off in far sides of the Yeah. Everybody say, art is fun. Yeah. And say, I'm a photographer because I can't draw anything but stick figures.
Although I did take him off.
Well, they probably want to take them with them.
Just so nice.
Okay. Okay. You know what? Did I put my agenda down there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. We're going to go ahead and keep this going. And so next up, I'm going to have the chief. I'm going to introduce for the PowerPoint presentation by Aaron Bernschott, coordinator of the Orange County Crime Stoppers, introducing the organization to the City Council. Go ahead, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor. Crime Stoppers is not a new program, but the Orange County chapter is new to our county, and the Los Alamitos Police Department, along with the other law enforcement agencies in the county, have partnered with Crime Stoppers in an effort to fight crime. So I would like to introduce Aaron Bernschott, who's the coordinator of Orange County Crime Stoppers, to give a short presentation.
Thank you. We good?
Yeah.
That's a little better. There we go. Thanks for having me. Just wanted to do a quick presentation about the program. I'll let you know about it, and if anyone's ever heard about it before, and kind of give you the idea of how it's been working and how it's gonna continue to work. So let me jump right in here. There we are. Okay, so Crime Stoppers is a nonprofit organization. It works with the media, works with law enforcement, and works with the community to provide a crime tip line. It's going to provide a reward of up to $1,000 for those that for tips that lead to an arrest. Crime Stoppers in general doesn't go over $1,000 because they've found statistically that people start to commit crimes when it starts to go above $1,000. I got nothing. But anyway, that's why they never go over $1,000. It does the way that it is funded. It is through a board of directors that make all the financial decisions. But we work with public and private partnerships to do different business events and different things like that to not only benefit us, but necessarily to benefit the community and the businesses as well. So, and the main reason why we're getting into this is to keep up with the 21st century. Before, I know our department and several others only had a 800 number for people to call when they want to call in a crime tip. But now we've kept up with technology, and we can people can now web tips in. They can text them in, because there's a few people that like to do that sort of thing, and they also can. There's also mobile applications for it. And the main purpose of this is just the anonymity aspect of it. The program allows for basically makes everybody a code, and that's all we'll ever know them as. I think over the 25 years that Crime Stopper's been in existence, there's only been 3 that have ever gone to case law to where they've actually subpoenaed the person to actually come forward with that information, and all they got was that code. There is absolutely no way to figure out who these people are. It's all encrypted. How it got here, some of you may know Patricia Wenskuna. She's the founder and CEO of Crime Survivors, and as well as Crime Stoppers, because she just didn't have enough to do. But she was assisting LA Regional get their Crime Stoppers program started about 3 years ago. San Diego has been had theirs for about 20 years, and they convinced her to get one started up in here. And just the partnership involved in all of that with the different Crime Stopper programs have been amazing. Just with LA and San Diego have kind of been hand-holding us through the whole thing. But I've come to find out it's simply because they're sick of getting all of our tips, and they wanted us to have our own program. Crime Stoppers International is actually, or this thing is actually international. I had never even heard of it before, but I got to go to the Crime Stoppers conference, and I met the international representative from London, from Guam, from Virgin Islands, because they've got crime there, and all kinds of other different places. It was just absolutely amazing on how big this was. And there you can see on there are 1,400 different Crime Stopper programs. We're the youngest. This is a brag sheet that's actually just pulled off of the Crime Stoppers USA website, and you can see, being the 25 years that it's been in existence, you're seeing that there's over 600,000 arrests, and the list goes on. Just in the short time of our program being in existence, in the first part of November of last year, 16 arrests. We've already confiscated $20,000 in drugs and merchandise and guns, and we've had well into the 200s in as far as tips received. So, and little amount of press that we've had, it's just amazing on how fast and how quickly this is all taken off. This is going to be some of the advertising that we're going to be littering the place with. We have this one. It's not quite that big. It would be awesome if it was. This would be the bumper stickers. Our department has them all on there, and several other departments are. I know Los Alamitos is going to be working on it. And by that also mean the fact that although the Sheriff's Department is coordinating it, it by no means is the Sheriff's Department's Crime Stoppers program. Like Chief said, that this was a quick buy-in by every single law enforcement agency, which is almost unheard of. And it's simply because of everyone realizing the kind of how important this thing was and how badly it was needed. So the buy-in on that and through all the different law enforcement agencies and how they're working together has been absolutely astonishing, quite honestly. This will be another one of the advertising things. You'll see it's a dual side card, so it teaches people how to do the texting. It's in English and Spanish on both sides. These will be the posters. We'll be plastering all over the place. And then this is the phone number. It's an 855 number because they are out of 800 numbers. So if you were trying to get one, sorry. It took a long time to figure that out, by the way. When you go to the website, you'll see the big give a tip sign right there, and that'll take you to the link. And you can see we have it in Spanish, or English, Spanish, and for the growing community of French residents here in Los Alamitos, we got it in French as well for you. That's not true. That's not why we have it. But it's international, Canada's involved, never mind. All right, so, and of course you can also text message. And there is an app for that. I put this last because usually there's people that start looking for it and my phone starts going off, so I put it in the back so people can't start getting to me. But there is a mobile app for it. That's what it'll look like. And go. And this is who we are. Patricia Wenskuna is obviously the founder, the CEO, and I'm the coordinator, and then I report to Lieutenant Mike Jansen with the Sheriff's Department as well. So that was just the quick and short of it, just to kind of give you an idea of what this program is, why it's here, how it's going to continue to work, and for everyone to start using in the future. I'll be happy to take any questions if anyone has any.
Anybody in the council have any questions? No. Thank you for coming down here. You know, just a message to the community. A lot of people, when we're out walking and talking to folks, Sarah, you know, they want to know, hey, is there some phone number we can call that's not 911 so we can get, you know, because our community is pretty vigilant about, we see people in our community that don't belong. A lot of people will call and the police come out. So, you know, Chief, I guess from your perspective, you know, we don't want to get the community confused on who to call now. You know, when you have an issue, you know, you got to still stay focused with, you know, with our local police department. But the Crime Stoppers, I don't know if we plan on putting it on our website, talking about it. But, you know, this is definitely another tool in the toolbox. But I think it's really important from the city's perspective that we send a clear message, at least on our website, of how we're going to plan to communicate with people so they don't kind of get locked up and not sure where to call. But great organization. And I noticed, too, a couple, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks ago, to try and fund this, you actually have fundraisers every year too, correct?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so, and how is that going?
It's going really well. They're having a meet and greet that's coming up. They're having a bunch of people at, they're having a dodgeball thing. That's going to be fun. And then there's also another, it's a bunch of different fundraisers, so either within the program and also with, you know, like the businesses and things that that we'll be working with. And so far it's going really well. We have about 17 board members, and so it's just continuing to grow. And also, just really quick, kind of like what you had said, it is not an alternate for 911. That's not what this system is for whatsoever. We make every point in doing that. And in fact, I could probably even go back to, right there. On there, you'll see there is a message in there that says that if you could dial 911 if you have an emergency. And because this system, the texting and the mobile app for it allows for an SMS dialogue, so I can actually message these people back and forth. And so if they have an emergency, we tell them they need to call 911, and if they're not going to do it, then we're going to do it for them.
Yeah, what a great service. We really appreciate you coming down. Ken?
One quick question. You seem very animated when you mentioned dodgeball. Do you have teams?
We are going to have teams. My team's going to be awesome.
And what is your team going to represent?
We're going to have the board members.
The board members?
Yeah.
So some of the cities could also have teams.
Exactly. Yeah.
Our teams will be.
We were going to have it was going to be in July, but unfortunately we had to push it back for another event. So, so you'll have time to practice and get a team together. But yeah, it's going to take about 20 teams, and it's we're going to go for broke. Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you again.
There.
Yeah. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, next up, we're going to open up the council meeting to item number 6, oral communication. At this time, any individual in the audience may come forward to speak on any item within the subject matter jurisdiction of the City Council. Remarks are to be limited to no more than 5 minutes per speaker. I've got 2 speaker cards and one familiar face out there, Janelle Gages from Southern California Edison. How you doing?
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor, Council members, city staff. Janelle Gages from Southern California Edison. I have to say I'm really impressed to see all the what I think are seniors in the audience. I hope they're enjoying this evening. This evening I'm here to reach out on Southern California Edison's summer readiness plans. Each year we actually conduct a summer readiness analysis. We look at generation sources, weather patterns, and system capabilities. As you're probably aware, Southern California Edison's nuclear generating station down in San Onofre is currently offline. That provides about 2,200 megawatts of power. That's the equivalent to 1.4 million homes. Wow. I really want to stress the importance of Edison's stance that we absolutely will not be reopening that generating station until both we and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission believe that it's safe to do so. There's just no timeline on safety for us. With that, though, we are looking to prepare for a summer without San Onofre and the risk of possible rotating outages. Now, I want to preface that with, right now, we do foresee that we will have enough system generation for the summer months, the heat storms that usually come in. However, our concern is in the event that we have an emergency or we lose a transmission line or we have to take something out of commission, our concern is, okay, what do we do then? So we are preparing for worst case scenario. There are 4 components that we are doing and implementing for summer readiness, the first of which being our transmission line. We have what we are calling the Delamo Ellis Lupin project. We have a substation, a major transmission substation in Huntington Beach, one in Stanton, and then also one in Cerritos, which you're probably very familiar with. Those 3 substations are being interconnected, and the point is to bring in transmission power from the outside sources. We are also looking at additional generation sources, one of which being the AES plant down in Huntington Beach. That, I am told, has actually restarted. Cal ISO did contact the AES plant and asked that they restart units 3 and 4. We are also looking to bring in generation from other sources as well. The third component is outreach, much like what I'm doing this evening, is reaching out to you and to the community. We are also doing media interviews, media releases, both with mainstream and ethnic media, Facebook and Twitter. We are also using direct mail and partnering with community and business organizations. If you see me out in the field, I'm talking up summer readiness till I'm blue in the face. But it's really important. We will also be implementing a Flex Alert program. It is a statewide conservation program. And again, it'll be targeted key messages throughout Orange County. The fourth component is conservation. I can't stress that enough. We are looking at providing customer incentives to those who do reduce their energy usage throughout those high peak summer times. One program that you're probably going to be familiar with is what we call our 10-10 plan. For a 10% reduction in energy usage, you will receive a 10% savings, an incentive. The last thing is I asked for the City of Los Alamitos and your continued support and partnership with Southern California Edison. I can't thank you enough. If and when materials do become available, I ask that you readily place them on the city website and at City Hall. And if there's any information that I can provide to you as your representative, I'm more than happy to do so. You will see my face more often throughout the summer as I come in and provide you updates with what Edison is doing for summer readiness. I don't know if the council has any questions. I know that it's usually not what happens during oral communications, but I'm happy to take them if you need to.
Great. Anybody have any questions? No.
Thank you.
Janelle, thank you again for coming. All right. I have another speaker card, Mark Watman. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening. Yeah, I hope this is actually the right place to bring this issue up. It seems a little off topic compared to what you're talking about tonight.
It's open.
But anyways, I'm here because a Los Alamitos police officer told me to go ahead and show up and bring my issue to you guys, which I'm sure that the same issue exists in most alleys in Los Alamitos, but I know because I happen to live between Green and Howard and Knoll and Bloomfield. There's a lot of blind spots where there's a lot of kids that are playing in those alleys and they will hop out in front of you without notice. And the number of times I'm almost myself I'm very cautious because I have a 2-year-old daughter. The number of times I've almost hit someone is just twice this last year, right? And I'm just looking to have a couple of speed bumps installed to slow people down because just last week I stopped a girl who was just whizzing down the alley. She wasn't being malicious or anything, but I asked her if she had any idea how fast she was going, and she said, well, I was looking at my speedometer. I was only doing 25. So down an alley, obviously, is not good. And, I mean, somebody's going to lose a kid. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. I think if a bump was installed right next to the sidewalk, it'll stop people from just jolting out onto the sidewalk too, where the kids are walking to school. Mm-hmm. So you're going to be safer there, and then, I don't know, 2 or 3 down the center of the alley.
Great. Well, Mark, good news. So we have a little bit of information for you. What I'd like to do is city manager or Steve talk a little bit about our speed bump program we just approved not too long ago. So I think it'd be of interest to you.
Thank you for coming to visit us tonight and bring the issue to us, Mark. We are in the process right now of, with Councilmember Jerry Mejia's leadership, determining what exact type of speed bump and the exact placement of speed bumps for the alleys that you're talking about. So what we'd like to do is get your phone number and follow up with you. And
I think we got it in the card.
okay. And then you can look for those to be installed. Stephen, do you have any installation information?
Within the next month, we just have to order them. We're still selecting which one's the preferred type of speed bump.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me just see any other buddy. I mean, definitely the council was very interested in this. Anybody else want to make any comments?
If you're interested, the city engineer and I have walked the alley and chosen what we hope to be the best positioning for those speed humps. They tend to be a little noisy, so we've tried to place them in positions where they're far enough apart to slow the traffic down, but on top of that, not affect the people who live there. So if you'd like, I can give you a call, and I can show you where we hope to put those. And if you have some input, we can take it then.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
I'll give
you,
you a call
Mark.
tomorrow.
All right.
Thank you. Anybody else have public comment? Good evening, Alice.
Good evening. Alice Jemsa, Rochelle Street, Los Alamitos. What I'm bringing up today is something that I don't remember having been addressed for all the time I was on the council. But believe me, it was a hot issue on in Los Alamitos last week if you got around Rochelle Street. Last Sunday morning, a week ago yesterday, got up, went to church, came home, looked around the yard, and there on the side of my yard, about 5 feet away from the sidewalk that goes along the side of the street there, was the biggest, deadest possum I had ever seen in my life. And, well, I felt sorry for the poor thing, but I thought, well, it's Sunday. I'll try calling animal control. I'll probably get an answering machine, but nevertheless, I'll call and at least have the message there. Well, when I got them on the phone, there was a live person telling me, and I told them what the situation was. And they said, well, we'll put you on the list, but you know, we have to take care of the dog bites and the coyotes that are wandering around in the streets, and maybe some emergencies thing. So you will be towards the bottom of the list. And I said, well, I can understand that. This possum isn't going to go anyplace. But I do have some concerns about the young children in the neighborhood. I don't want them going near that dead animal because I don't know why it is dead. So they said they would come as soon as they could. Well, I waited and I looked out there Monday morning, and my friend the possum was still there. And so I waited until the afternoon, and I called them again. And I got the same story. Oh, yes, we have you. I know, you called yesterday. We have you on the list. But our people are out taking care of, again, the dog bites and the animals that were causing problems and things like that, and we'll get to you as soon as possible. Well, I thought, okay. And so that I kept watching out as the kids were going home from school and things to see that they didn't go near that animal, because it really was an attractive nuisance. And then I had a neighbor up the block from me said, well, you know, we saw a possum in our backyard on Saturday, and it was alive then, but it's very dead now. And I said, okay. I gave them the number to call, and I said, and I will follow up with a call also, because this is getting to be, you know, we should have some action by now. So, and by Tuesday, neighbors were stopping and tapping on my door, and they said, do you realize you've got that dead possum? I said, oh yes, I'm very aware of it. I have called, and I will call again. And so they promised me, again, we will get out there as soon as we take care of these emergency things. And I thought, well, come on now. If that was a diseased animal and the one up the block suddenly dying on the same time, we may have a real problem here. But anyway, there were flies all over this poor thing. There were large birds swooping down on it that were hungry and tearing it apart, and it was not a pretty sight at all. And so I thought, well, I hope that they get through here through the day sometime. Well, Wednesday came, and my possum was still there, what was left of him, and I had more people rapping on my door. And one person came in and said, "For goodness sakes, Alice, why don't you get rid of that possum?" I said, "I have called them Sunday, I called them Monday, I called them Tuesday, and I am going to call them again today." And he had his cell phone with him, and he said, "Well, you can smell that thing 2 houses away, and I've got my phone with me. Give me the number and I will call him." So this gentleman stood in my family room, called animal control, told them that they didn't just have 1, but they had 2 dead possum in the neighborhood. And he really thought they ought to get out here and do something about it. And he got the strangest look on his face. And he said, "What do you mean telling me that the city should hire someone else to do this?" And I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's not right. We contract with them and we pay good money to them. And we also have lots of neighboring cities that are paying good money to that Long Beach Animal Control facility to take care of them. So he was very upset, to say the least. So he started making another comment to the lady, and all of a sudden he looked at me and he said, "She hung up on me."
Oh.
Okay, and I know you're hanging up on me. I called the city. This gentleman over here helped me, and he got someone from the police department to make the call, and they told me they had called, and within an hour that was picked up. But I thought having possibly diseased animals on the ground from Sunday at least through Wednesday was not what we're contracting for.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I think we need to address this situation.
Yeah.
And don't be surprised if it happens again.
Okay, well, thanks, Alice. So, City Manager, if you can, call Animal Control on our behalf, and if we can, we'll send a note off to Alice so she can share that with her neighbors, too. Great, thank you. I'm not sure you should be clapping for that one. Okay. Anybody else have any public comment?
J.M. Ivler. The city did some really great things recently, in particular the whole fix up your property and bring your stuff in. And in the scope of that, the idea was to help Los Al businesses, among other things. There's been discussion about using some money to fix up parks and fix up our community, and I think that's also great. I recently had the pleasure of kicking around a couple ideas with Councilmember Kusamoto because, you know, I've looked at our city and like him, like Councilmember Kusamoto, we've talked about what can we do to increase sales tax in our city, increase business in our city. My reasoning is that they have to make up for the overpayment in the trash contract, obviously, but I would like to help local businesses and like to see local businesses thrive, and how can the city get involved with that? And one of the things we discussed was an idea which I think should come back to council, should be discussed by council. It's a low-cost option, and I think it would be very beneficial to our community, our businesses, particularly our restaurants in our community, and to our city as well. And that is, I would love to see the city council do something along the lines of Eat Los Al program, where people who eat at restaurants in Los Al can put their name and address or their name and contact information on the back of the restaurant receipt. The restaurants can turn those receipts into the city, and at the end of each month we have a $200 or $400 pot, and we pull out the receipts, and if your receipt gets pulled, your dinner gets paid. Your meal's paid for. So eat in Los Al, and randomly we will select up to $400 a month or $200 a month or however much we're willing to put into this to reward people randomly for eating in Los Alamitos. We've got a number of really great restaurants in the city, from the low end of, let's say, a Nick's Deli to the high end of Shenandoah. And it would really be great to see our city working with our restaurant community to help increase eating at our restaurants instead of, let's say, food trucks. Let's bring the business home, and I really would like to see our city council discussing ways that the city could possibly get involved with our local business community to help drive business, like we're doing right now with our build and get your money back for your fees. It's a low-cost way of getting the community and the businesses working together to benefit the members of our community who eat at our local restaurants, but also benefit our businesses as well. I hope you'll consider programs like this. Like I said, Warren has been wonderful bouncing ideas off of to try to enhance the potential revenue to our city and also help our businesses survive in these tough times. And I'd like to thank you for your time, and I hope you will consider something like this program to benefit our local community businesses. Have an outstanding evening.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Before we close oral communication, anybody else have any comments? Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close oral communication, move on to item number 7, register major expenditures. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Graham Mejia.
Aye.
Councilmember Kusamoto.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Poe.
Aye.
Mayor Edgar.
Aye. Next up is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items may be acted upon with one motion unless a council member requests separate action on a specific item. Would anybody like to pull anything from the consent calendar?
Mayor, I'd like to pull item A, and if no opposition, make a motion to move the remainder.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Anybody have anything else they want to pull? If not, I'll ask for a second for the remainder.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
I will recuse myself or abstain from voting on item H because I have a perceived conflict, but otherwise I am fine with the remainder.
Okay, great. So, okay. So all in favor of B through G, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody oppose or abstain? And item H, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And Marilyn, you abstain.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the item 8A, approval of minutes. Councilmember Mejia.
Yes, Mayor, I just like noted for the record that I feel that the format in which the meeting minutes are kept now are uninformative and do not give a clear depiction for future councils or for community members who may be using that as a tool for items in the future. And I'd like to see them return to their prior format for the betterment of the council and the city.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Mejia. Can I have a motion for that item? I'll move it. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
All right. Next up, we're on item 9, discussion items. 9A, consideration of reduction of tax rate and modernization of current telephone users tax. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report will serve to introduce this issue to the community. The issue we're going to discuss tonight to consider a reduction of the tax rate and modernization of the current telephone users tax is primarily about a couple of main issues, main items. Number one, the issue is whether to change the language in our existing ordinance dealing with the telephone users tax to protect the current revenues the city receives and to protect the city from potential lawsuits. And also, should the council change the existing telephone users tax rate or keep it the same? Tonight I'm going to start with an introduction to this issue, followed by Finance Director Anita Agramonte to describe the fiscal impact. And then City Attorney Sandy Levin will weigh in with the legal issues and also talk about why we should modernize the existing ordinance and give us some results from other cities. So, by way of introduction, a utility users tax, or UUT, which is its shortened nickname, is a tax levied on each user of a utility such as telephone, electricity, gas, or water within the city's boundaries. The current tax is 6% for each of these utilities, and our current tax was implemented in 1991. The telephone users tax, or TUT for short, is one part of the UUT. It is the part that applies to telephone services only, and that's what we're talking about. This tax is imposed upon the user of telephone services, but is collected by the supplier of those services. For example, residents who have telephone lines in their homes are obligated to pay the tax, but is their telephone carrier, AT&T, for example, or Verizon, or whoever, who collects the tax and by including it into their customer telephone bills. The carriers, Verizon or AT&T or whomever, then pay the tax to the city on a monthly basis by submitting a check and a remittance form. Since the UUT was established in Los Alamitos, or the utility users tax, communication technology has changed dramatically with cell phones, satellite communications, and other media. Along with that, billing has changed with the advent of fixed free calling plans and newer technology that will continue to be developed. Our existing ordinance, our existing city ordinance, might be challenged if we continue to apply it to new technologies not specifically referenced or incorporated into the older language of the existing ordinance. This issue would be eliminated by the voter approval of a newer, clarified communications users tax, or CUT tax, or ordinance. Submitting an ordinance for voter approval will allow the public to confirm that it wishes to continue the revenue stream that Anita will tell you about in just a minute, modernize the language that would apply to the tax, and modernize it equally across the board to all communications technologies, including new and emerging technologies. And then another point that you will discuss as a council is with the desire to keep our tax currently at 6% or potentially reduce that. So we have the opportunity to include this measure on the ballot in November 2012, and it would require a majority approval by the voters of Los Alamitos. As I mentioned earlier, tonight we're introducing the issue to the community and asking authority to move ahead with the planning and execution of 2 community workshops. These would be held in June, and these would be for the purpose of educating the community, answering questions, and then determining whether or not the council would like to place this measure on the ballot. This is an issue brought forward to protect the general fund revenue, and one that requires broad community support to succeed. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Anita and have her talk about the TUT, the telephone users tax revenue that is currently, that we receive as a result of the 6% TUT tax.
Thank you, Angie. Yes, the city receives a utility users tax here in Los Alamitos at a rate of 6%. The utility users tax overall is the 3rd highest revenue source for the city of Los Alamitos, coming in at $2.15 million in annual general fund revenues, or 19 to 20% of our overall revenue picture. Now, focusing in on the telephone users tax, the TUT represents 30% of the UUT that the city collects. So over the past 4 years, the city has realized $650,000 per year in telephone users taxes annually. That average represents 5.7% of the city's total revenue picture. So to put that into perspective, into budgetary terms, what that equates to is the equivalent of 6 police officer positions or 9 civilian employee positions, or even the total of the community development department's whole annual budget. To put that into further perspective, the water rates this year are projected to increase. The increase, we will see an increase in revenues on the utility tax. However, those are offset by increases in expenditures for, in the Parks Division, watering the parks, for our buildings, and so forth. So there's no overall gain from that. Another important point worth mentioning is the lack of control over the city's other taxes. The UUT here in town has been a stable source of revenue over the last several years. However, as we've experienced with our sales tax, that dropped 24% during tough economic times. So that basically sums up the gravity of the situation.
And now, City Attorney Sandy Levin.
I guess the main point that I want to address is that the City of Los Alamitos is not alone in this. The bulk of the utility users tax ordinance that you have came from a model ordinance that was developed in the 70s, before there were cell phones or prepaid services or flat rate calling plans or any of the things that we now consider normal and standard in the communications industry. So it's a very old model. It was used by many, many cities, and as a result, many cities have gone through this process of trying to modernize their ordinance. And I was able, in doing some research, to identify 64 different local jurisdictions that that put ballot measures on to modernize their TUT by either maintaining the rate that they had in place or reducing it somewhat. Of those 64, 61 of them passed, and those jurisdictions were able to modernize and protect that revenue source for their cities. People have asked, why do we need to do this? And there are a number of reasons, but there is the threat of litigation. Other cities have been sued over their TUTs, and although none of those have actually come to a final determination yet, even the cost of litigation is significant and much, much greater than the cost of an election. There are equity issues because we can't, based on an older ordinance, really determine that everybody is paying their fair share and that those who have modern technologies are actually paying just the way someone who has an old-fashioned landline is. And so that equity issue has been a driving factor in a lot of jurisdictions. And then just generally speaking, we need appropriate defensible ordinances so that if a challenge comes up, we can explain how our ordinance applies. And people who need to apply our ordinance, the carriers who need to collect the tax, a taxpayer who is interested in understanding the tax, everyone can read it and understand how it applies in this day and age, and not try and fit that square peg into a round hole of trying to make a 1970s ordinance match what's actually happening now. And there are a couple of recent factors that have come around that I think make it more important that we address it in the near future and not leave it lingering if the council wants to take these steps forward. And in addition to the litigation that's pending in other jurisdictions, we've started to see in the last couple of years that some of the smaller cities are getting sued too. It used to be that it was just the larger cities, but there are some hungry class action lawyers out there who are starting to go after smaller cities too, and hoping to earn a quick buck and get a settlement out of somebody. And then there has been some federal legislation in Congress, proposed but not passed, but that would limit the ability of cities to be able to fix these problems by modernizing their ordinances. And so we don't want to take the risk that we wait too long and then aren't able to do what those 60-something other cities have done to protect the revenue source. So fundamentally, we're looking at the need for a voter-approved ordinance because it is a tax, and in the state of California, you need voter approval. It's a general tax, meaning it's used for all the basic city services, police, parks, street maintenance, everything that we do with general fund tax dollars. And because it's a general fund tax, it only requires a majority approval of the voters. The soonest we could put it on the ballot would be November of 2012, and the next opportunity after that would be November of 2014. If you have any questions, we're all eager to answer them.
Okay, so I'm going to bring this back to the council. We're going to talk a little bit about it. What I'd like to also do is we'll open it up to if anybody in the community has any questions or any comments. But, you know, we've still got a few high school students in the audience. And, you know, just to kind of get this down to the ground level that you understand, how many of you guys, just by raise of hand, have a cell phone? All of you. Okay. So you imagine that in your family, you're probably on average one of two siblings in your house. You guys all have a cell phone, and you're waving to your mom on TV. But when you're done, what ends up happening here is we take 6%. So let's just say on average that your bill is $30 a month that your parents pay. And so on average, we take the phone companies take 6% of that, so about $1.20, right? And that money comes back to the city for us to help the chief out in funding police officers. The issue is that our ordinance, the thing that allows us to get that money, goes back to the 70s when they didn't have cell phones, right? So what we're trying to do is figure out now we need to modernize our code so that we can actually legally collect money for new technology. Right now, the companies collect it anyway, and we receive it. But the issue is that if we're ever challenged down the road, we might have a problem because we're not authorized to be able to have it because our code doesn't say we can take it. So the thing we're talking about tonight is really important because our police officers and any of the other services funded through the general fund, there's about $700,000 at stake here. So we really need to look at this. And because it's a tax, meaning that we could affect how much your parents pay, we have to take it to the ballot. And we've been having discussions about this city council-wise in closed session because that there is a lot of legal issues going on up and down the state. So this council's looked at this and said, you know what, we need to be proactive. We need to protect the opportunity for us to be able to make sure that we're legally doing this correctly, because if we don't fix it, we could potentially have that source of revenue removed, and that would be a lot less money, $700,000 a year that we wouldn't be able to get as a city. So what we've been trying to do is just make sure that the community is aware of this. And there's a short time period. A lot of people ask, well, you know, why are you guys looking at this now? You know, right now it's May 21st, and the November election is coming up in November, beginning of November, and we have to be able to look at this as a council, decide whether we want to put this on the ballot, because if we do, we need to put it on the ballot, and it has to get covered by 50% vote. So it's a pretty significant event. It would take the community getting behind this to say, hey, look, this is something that we really need to do as a community because we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So I wanted to frame that up a little bit, and then what I'd like to do is go ahead and open it up to the City Council and see what other comments we might have. Who would like to go first?
I'll take it.
Councilmember Stevens.
Just simply because you mentioned the 1970s. When that ordinance, you know, and the city attorney hit it right on the nose, and so did the city manager. Back in the 1970s, we truly only had in Southern California 2 phone companies. You had Pacific Bell, and you had General Telephone. Well, General Telephone, I believe, morphed into Verizon and the phone company that we have right now. But then they divested the phone companies, and it created a great many startup companies. And startup companies probably are the same companies that you have your cell phones with right now. And it was good because it created more competition in the marketplace whenever they did that. But the fact still remains that we're still dealing with an ordinance that was designed back in the 70s when you simply had landlines that people used and not cell phones and all the other communications. It's essentially time for us to get out of the 70s and get up to the new 2012 through 15 type ordinance that'll protect the city and protect the consumer too at the same time, and create parity for everyone that that does have a cell phone or a telephone of any type. So it's something you're going to see happen. It's something that I believe we're going to probably have a couple of community meetings on, a little bit of outreach into the community. And the big thing is that whenever we do draft a new ordinance, how often, seriously, with the technology changing as fast as it is right now, I mean, that ordinance could possibly even be outdated within a year or two also.
The general approach to that most cities have used is, instead of defining it in terms of the technology, we now define it in terms of the function, that it is any technology or means for communication over distance between two or more parties. And there's a whole complicated definition that's used in the law, as there always is. But basically, it's defined in terms of the communication function rather than the mechanism that you use, whether it's, you know, the interconnected switch network or mobile services or VoIP or whatever it might be. We don't define it in terms of the technology anymore because we recognize that it's changing so fast that we couldn't possibly keep up.
Yeah, I think that's, you hit it right on the nose there. I mean, I woke up to it just this last weekend when my son told me that, why do you want an iPad? And he says, it's nothing more than my iPhone on steroids. And so it's still, it's changing technology, you know, and it's something we have to be aware of up here.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Kusumoto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll be honest, I think when this came up last year, I was pretty gung-ho in supporting it. And when it came up this time around, I was sort of a little more ambivalent about it because I just read this about the state, the financial crisis and mess that we're in, that they're going to ask us as taxpayers to tax ourselves even more, continue taxes so we can go ahead and keep schools and public safety and all these wonderful things that the state's doing for us. So I'm really kind of, you know, really having to be thoughtful about this whole issue, whether I want to support this or not. I think that we pay a lot of taxes in general in the state, the privilege of living here. But then looking at the numbers here, we have a $600,000+ budget revenue that we have to look at, and that's the part I think that I'm going to have to go ahead and just support this in you know, that this is important to us as a community, although it's not new tax, it's just clarifying what we're already putting upon ourselves as ratepayers. Now, I guess for clarity, I think what the city attorney was talking about was Proposition 218 that says this has to go out, it's a tax, it's a vote to the people, and it's 50% plus one vote, and that's of the voters, right, not of the population. So it's an important issue for the people out there. We need to understand through the community workshop what you all want, what we really need to do for ourselves, and you know, it'd be nice to have the voters turn out in some numbers to really let their voices be heard if we get that 50% plus one, because that's the part I think that we really need to have that support of the maximum amount of people, because that's, you know, this is our government, this is how we govern ourselves, how we pay for the services, the infrastructure that we have. So with that said, I think this is something we have to do. It's too important for our revenues. And other than that, I'll just turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mayor Pro Tempo.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. A little clarification. We're only talking about the verbiage for that's regarding the telephone, correct?
Yes, the modern term for that is communications. Yes, it's the telephone users tax or communications users tax portion. Right.
And do we have kind of a ballpark figure of what the cost of the election would be to have this on the ballot?
Yes, that would range between $16,500 and $18,500.
All right, and being that we have just gone through the budgeting earlier, we have not put that in the budget for the year. Okay, all right. You know, we do have the opportunity to listen to and we want to do this with this outreach to the community. We want people to understand what this is about, and we do have the opportunity to possibly decrease the utility tax on that portion. And that, I'm always in favor of us being able to decrease a tax, and it still does have to be voted on. So I'm anxious to hear what the community thinks. We could leave it the same, but maybe it would be more palatable to the community to decrease it. We could go to 5.5% or maybe 5%. We just need to get the input from the community. And we do need to ensure that we can provide services to our residents and businesses that they're used to having. And the only way we can do that is to protect the income to our city. And that would include this, because this is a big chunk of it.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Mejia.
Thank you, Mayor. City Attorney, can you clarify, did I hear you say that Congress is potentially taking action to keep us from being able to change our ordinance? Did I hear that right?
There have been, every year in Congress, there have been bills introduced. So far they haven't passed, but there's one in committee now to limit the ability of local jurisdictions to approve these kinds of taxes. They want to reserve that to the federal government.
Well, isn't that just like
So under any of the proposals, existing taxes are grandfathered in and protected. So the idea would be that if we can get ours modernized before the federal government does anything to limit our ability, then that would give us a further layer of protection.
Sure. The one thing that I am requesting is that of the 64 local jurisdictions that have already addressed this, I believe you said 61 have passed favorably to improve their ordinance. I'd like to see if we can get a benchmark to see how the communities were affected. Was it a positive? Were the residents that voted for it after the fact saying this was not a good deal? That way, we're not reinventing the wheel. We can take the data from these cities that have already addressed this issue and apply it here. Our intent, and I'm going to say this, I won't support this if it looks like it's going to increase taxes for our community. That's not our intent. Our intent is at best to break even and potentially even lessen the cost to the taxpayers. So, Mayor, that's all I have right now at this point.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that what you can see is that there's clearly something that we were trying to respond to. And again, this is a modernization of the TUT. It's something that we feel is really important. I'm hoping that what will come out of this evening after we get public comment and bring it back is that we would like to be able to, at least I, from where I'm sitting at this point, would like to be able to move a specific position forward and then have it work through workshops so we could start to gain some of the communities, the extended communities' perspective on this item, and make sure that that from a support perspective that everybody understands it. We could see what type of questions we have. All of us bring different aspects to the council. I focus a lot on the data, and I think that what Councilmember Mejia talked about of looking at the 61 cities of the 64 that passed it, the objectives of that number of cities of the 64 is that those cities tried to pass this with remaining either neutral or lessen the tax burden. And so I think that as she's calling on, hey, I'd like to see the data, and somebody goes, well, how do you find out if they're more happy or not satisfied? You specifically, I think what would be helpful is to go to, after they passed it, look at their general fund under their revenue, under telephone utilities tax, and just see year on year, did it increase or decrease once the new code was put in place? And at that point, what you can see is, I think what you're hearing up here is that the council's moving towards actually reducing the telephone user tax by a percentage in hopes that it will lower it point for point, like 0.5%, 1%, to our taxpayers while we modernize the code. But if there is any chance that as we widen the base of the tax liability, meaning something like voice over IP or data or something that wasn't covered, and it opens it up, that there may be some slight increases or increase in the base, which would mean more tax revenue comes in. And that's what we need to make sure is we're not using this process to change the tax position. If anything, we're just trying to hold it neutral so that we don't lose the tax opportunity for us to collect under utility users tax. With those points, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and just open it up to the community at this point, see if we have any comments at all, any thoughts on this at this moment. Okay. Richard. Finally, Richard. We've been trying to draw you out in a couple meetings.
Richard Murphy. I really have a question on the idea you were just speaking of.
Sure.
Will this broaden on the other 61 of the 64 cities? Did it broaden their tax base?
As Councilmember Mejia stated, and we've all kind of seen the topical view of this, we didn't have the data of what happened. And I think what Councilmember Mejia is she's directing staff to actually go and do a look at their CAFRs and look year on year and see for a point increase or decrease. First of all, what did they promise the community? And second of all, what happened? Because there is this level of uncertainty. You don't know what the unintended consequence of that adjustment of modernization is. So, it's a way for us to gauge whether the sensitivity of 0.5% or a full percent would keep us neutral.
Yeah, obviously, from the city's point of view, this is not an election you can afford to lose.
No, I agree.
But I would like to ask, is anything being done on the 5% chance that the tax gets voted down?
Well, when we start talking about this, if we go out there, I mean, what it would be is, do we want to modernize the tax? Yes, no. If it's yes, then we do it. If no, it just stays the same, but we still have the same risk. So we're not voting ourselves out of a tax change. We're voting into a modernization.
I understand, but I would get the feeling that the moment that this loses, any 10 of the many unemployed lawyers in this state would be more than happy to deliver you a summons.
Yeah.
And I just can't see that we would not be opening ourselves up if we do lose.
Yeah. The other thing, and I'll definitely let our city attorney and anybody in the council address it because they've all been watching, what we're seeing across the state is this item in the municipal law area, this item has a lot of visibility. It's something very well known, and there is concerns. That's why we're trying to take a proactive step now. We anticipate potential problems down the road, and I think we're just trying to be proactive and try to protect it up front. A lot of it's on all of us, though, Richard. I mean, not only the council, everybody that's served the city that understands the finances well enough to know how critical and dire this is. That's going to be the challenge, is to try and convince the voters that this is something that we really need to do to protect that revenue.
Yes, I could see, though, that, as Warren mentioned, Governor Brown is going to put on a new tax code, a new sales tax, and tax the rich as a guise for but vote yourself a new tax code. Things lost like 3 years in a row, but we're in danger, in my mind, of people saying, I'm not paying for any new taxes. I don't care what they are. It's pretty much the approach I take to bond issues. Bond issue, no. It's, so I'm afraid that's a possibility.
So let me just give you a counterpoint on that. So as a council, just to use extremes, we have a 6% utility users tax. If we wanted to ensure this thing would pass because everybody would feel good about it, and we know directionally that this thing would definitely lower tax, we could go from 6% to 1%, right? And everybody would go, man, that's great. 5% utility users tax on telephone would be great. Let's go with that. The only issue is we're almost shooting ourselves in the foot, but it assures that this thing passes and we don't have a legal issue. Yeah. So we've got to kind of approach as close as we can to our 6% without losing the voters. That's why we need the community input.
Okay. And if I have a moment left, I would like to insert a personal note, and that's, I've stood before you many times, Mayor, And we've not always agreed, but I think in the time I've been here, you're the smartest mayor we've had. And I just realized we're not going to see you again before the election the first time. And I'd like to ask the citizens of Los Alamitos to at least give you a chance in this open primary to make your case and move you forward. So I don't think the city of Los Alamitos, as far as I can remember, and I've asked other people, we've never had a state representative. And a chance for that, I think, is not an opportunity that we should pass up. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Any other comments? Alice? We gave you some extra time on the possum story, so...
I have a question.
Sure.
This, as I understand it now, will not have anything to do with the utility tax on our other utilities.
That's correct.
Okay, because that has to be very clearly put out to the people so they understand. We're not asking you to vote to eliminate all the utility taxes. It just involves this telephone. And this is a very complicated thing. I don't know how the other cities managed to do so well, but I think you better take a very good look at what they did if they got it passed. Because to me, it sounds like, oh boy, we get to get rid of all this extra utility tax. You expect me to vote against that? It's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah.
But just keep those other utility taxes because we need those, as you well know.
Thank you. Any other comments from the community? Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council, and the city attorney's flagging me right now. What would you like to
I just
add
wanted
to that?
to partially respond to Ms. Jemsa's
Sure.
comment because I have seen these elections in other communities where they passed, and really the focus is on asking the community, do you want to continue to have the services that this money pays for? And if you want to, then you need to modernize and protect the source of that revenue. And that's the fundamental question you're asking the community is, do they want to continue to have the services that are being paid for by the $600,000+ a year that you get from TUT? And if they do, then this is the prudent thing to do. And if they would rather have cuts, then hopefully we'll get that feedback from the community workshops and we'll know before we put it on the ballot, not after.
City Attorney, some of the folks in the community were asking a question after last meeting. We had a discussion about utility users tax, and we got into a discussion on money that we set aside to help the community, about $380,000. From that, we assigned an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee was asked to help work with the community to prioritize, but it also, in that discussion, talked about maybe the potential advocate for this initiative, or at least to talk to the commissions. I think we need to add some clarity to the community to what the ad hoc's role was or is in this, so that we send a clear message to the community on what that is.
Right now, we're just at the stage of outreach, and so I would hope that all of the council members, and certainly the ad hoc committee especially, would be helping us with that outreach and trying to get some community feedback on whether the community wants to see this on a ballot, and if so, if they have preferences about what the parameters are. If and when the council votes to put this on the ballot, then the community has to take over from there. The city is prohibited from spending any city resources to campaign for or against a ballot measure. So we can collect input and find out if this is something the community wants. We can go out and explain the issue. We can provide informational materials now and even during a campaign, but we can't campaign for a ballot measure. So if and when it gets on the ballot, then that's when the community has to take over, and that's why we need to know if it's something they want.
So just to add a little bit of clarity, because it is such an important item, and everybody in the council's got so many different priorities in helping in different things, is it allowable for us to have a discussion on coverage at those community workshops to ensure that we have at least one or two council members, or could we specifically charter that ad hoc group to be the group that actually for sure is there? I felt very comfortable with the ad hoc group because it was Jerry, who has the ear of the community, and Warren, who's the numbers guy and the data guy, and would be able to go through that kind of as the complement. but if that's not part of the charter, I don't want to ask that as an expectation.
You can do your community outreach and collecting of input any way that you as a council decide is appropriate. So divide up the duties any way you want. Now would be a great time to talk about it.
Okay, so I guess that's just something that I'm interested in. I don't know if anybody else shares the interest. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we decide to not do it, I'll be there on every community workshop. I'm sure everybody will. Go ahead.
Question. On these community workshops, how does the Brown Act interplay with that?
If we thought that there were going to be more than 2 council members at a meeting who want to speak on the issue, then we would just agendize it as a meeting. If the council members are there just to listen and hear the input, then we don't need to agendize it as a meeting. Or if there are 2 members, 1 or 2 members who want to speak and the rest are just there to hear what's going on, then we don't need to agendize it. So you tell us how you want to handle it and we'll take care of the paperwork and agendizing it.
Okay, so it's kind of hard to go to a community meeting and when people are asking you as a council member a question to not be rude and not answer. So I guess what you're saying is that if it's probably better if we just designate 2 people, and it doesn't, it's fine if the ad hoc committee wants to do it, but as Troy said, I'm willing to go, and spread this out. If it's asking a lot, you're talking about 3 different meetings, so it's.
And if more than 2 of you want to go, we can post an agenda. It's not a big problem.
So that's not a big problem. All right. Okay.
Anybody else have any comments, feedback on that? No. Okay, so at this point, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to talk a little bit about the percentage, as a starting point. I'd like to be able to craft a start point that we would push out into the workshops as an area so that we can get the dialogue going. If I guess first of all, I'll ask, does anybody have any start point that they would want to propose and go forward with this into the workshops?
Mayor,
sure.
I'm kind of interested, possibly before we set a start point, to find out the results of this survey of these other communities that have done it, to see which ones were. I think that would be telling for us as to where the most successful were, what start point they used. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, the only comment I would have, and we'll ask staff here, is the timeline to get this to the ballot.
Right.
And go collect 61 data points, or do we put a position out and then give ourselves the flexibility through the workshops to present the data and be flexible going forward? So, City Attorney and/or City Manager, the timeline to the ballot. So let's talk about that so that we know what our constraints are.
So in June, we plan to hold, we started with 2 meetings. It can be however many the council would wish to hold, but we said 2 for practical purposes. Then in early July, we would come back to the council to assess if there's enough community support to discuss that thoroughly and make a determination whether this should go on the ballot. Then we would have to do the work, all the ballot language, put all that together. And I've stipulated the date of late July to make that determination. And then the actual ballot language, I think it's due, the exact date is August 10th, if I'm not mistaken. So pretty short timeline. And that's why we've designated June for community outreach. And we would certainly set those meetings, at night, so that we can get a broad community support as possible.
So Mayor Pro Tem Poe talked about the potential to do an evaluation on the 61 cities Would you be able to fit that in before we kick off the workshop series?
You know, quite honestly, that is difficult we're Sandy, who has so much experience in this topic and has worked with cities and really knows. We'll have to set staff aside and make specific phone calls and ask specific questions. We can always give it our best shot. We can do our darndest. Sandy, do you have anything to add to that?
My guess would be that we could probably get through a survey of a representative list of some of the more recent cities, but stretching back it's over a period of about 10 years that those 60-something have adopted their measures, and trying to dig up the older information before they had websites and before they had that information so readily accessible is going to be kind of difficult. But we'll see how much information we can gather within a reasonable amount of time. So the goal, I think, should be to get as much of the information as we can before the community meetings, but not to hold the community meetings until we have everything done.
Okay. Great. Okay. Any other feedback or comments on that? Councilmember Mejia.
Yeah, I will go on the record as saying I'm not comfortable taking a stance on this until we have the data. And to me, and I'm no professional in this, but when you talk about the older cities, they would be able to show you over a period of time more clearly than the newer cities that have less data. So I'm not sure that going with the newer cities would be the best representation for whether or not this increased or decreased their revenues. I think that the older cities, you would have more information for the past years. So if that's something that the council supports, I would like to see whether or not this impacted the residents, period. That's my number one concern. And as one of the ad hoc committee members, if you choose to go with Warren and I, if that's the way we go, I'm not comfortable, as I said, taking a stance until we at least have this, because there's so little concrete information that we can offer the residents as to why we're basing our decision on this.
I agree with you. There's lots of information as to why we need to do this. There's not a lot of information out there as to what the right rate is, or what the reduction should be, or what the numbers will look like after it passes, assuming it does pass. And we'll get you what information we can. The market, as the nature of this problem is that the market has been changing quickly. So if we reach back more than 5 or 6 years, the market was very different then, and the data we would collect from them probably isn't going to be too helpful. So we'll get you the best data we can, and actually I know a few experts in this field, and I'll try and pick their brains and see if I can get some tips on how to collect information that would be useful to you.
Sure, and I wasn't expecting you to go back 10 years, but I think if you go back 1 year and it hasn't even been a complete year, what good would that do us?
Right,
there's the fluctuations, as we've talked about, in the economy, where you're going to see those normal fluctuations anyways. I want to get a true idea of the impact this has, and let's not get too much in a hurry. I mean, we want to do this right. We don't want to have a special election. We don't want to spend the extra money. But if we don't have the information, it doesn't have to go on this ballot.
It can't go on a special election, though, unless you have a fiscal emergency. Prop 218 says it has to be on a regular election. So it's now or it's 2 years later. But obviously, better to do it right.
Sure. I just don't want us to be pressured into a position like we were years ago with the insurance, where it ended up we thought we were making a really good decision. Last minute input changed the whole outlook of the course of the insurance plan, and then we were stuck with it for 4 years. I'm not willing to do that. So I'll go ahead and pass it back to you.
Okay, so just to add a little bit of detail, let's get very specific on that, because I just want to make sure we have clear objectives of what we need in this study, because it's a kind of a go, no-go, right? So there's 61 of 65 cities. I think it would be helpful, since this is a little bit in the minutia, but we are up here on the council trying to make a policy decision, or at least conjecture of which direction. I'd like to know of that, what was the promise to the people? Was it no decrease, like 0, 0.5%, just so we can get an idea of the sensitivity? I'd like to be able to see what year it passed and what year it was enacted. And then I'd like to be able to get the TUT amount specifically. Because in CAFRs, if you ordered up CAFRs or was able to get any of that online, you can see 5 years back if you get it. But on the CAFRs, the TUT specifically in year 0, meaning the year past, hopefully, and then maybe 1 or 2 years. And Jerry, I think if we were able to get that, we could at least get a sample set. It might not be all inclusive, but would that be enough data, even if it's not consistent? You know, is it 61 for 61 and you're happy, or is it a decent sample set that we can get within a time period?
I'm just looking for a cross section. I realize that each city is made up differently, so there may be a difference in how it affects either residents or if you have more industry. I get that, but what I'm looking for as an overall general look at it, was it a positive thing, or was it something that negatively impacted that wasn't anticipated when they went forward with this recommendation to their own constituents?
But you're defining positive as they paid, as a city, they did not pay more tax.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
Largely speaking, and I know it can vary, but largely speaking, that it wasn't a impact where it cost them more money, because that was when we had the meeting with the commissions, a joint commission meeting, that was the biggest concern, was they were not wanting to pay more taxes, and I don't blame them. You know, we have the water rates going up 25%, the electricity going up 25%. This council does not have the desire to labor the residents with any kind of extra tax. That's not our intention. So all we can do is do our due diligence. If that's the only information we have to draw from, we'll have to make our best decision based on that.
Okay. So based on the staff report says it's $650,000 a year. So 0.5%, would be, what is that, 18? Somewhere in there, as far as, 32,000. So yeah, so 32,000 would be the buffer, so that if it was broadened and we got more tax and it was over 32, that would be the problem. I think we need to start talking about the model. So when we get into the workshop, we can say, okay, here's the last 4 years of our TUT, here's at 0.5%, here's at 1% as modeling, and it could get to where we want to go lower, like we talked about with Richard. If we want to assure success at the ballot box, we go to 1, but somewhere in there we need to know how much we're putting it at risk, and then we'll use that data with the data that Jerry and Marilyn want, which is this, and then the time period. So today, May 21st. Let's draw a line based on the timeline, not to hurry it, because we just need to do as much as we can do, but what is specifically a good target from a staff perspective? What can we expect to get? Maybe an interim status report and how it's going, even if it's in our weekly report, and then maybe brief us again at a council meeting coming up.
Well, in the middle of all this, we're trying to pass a budget. So we have 3 staffers in finance, and one of them will be tasked with this. So that's what we're dealing with. We'll huddle tomorrow morning, we'll figure out a game plan, and we will start our research.
Mayor?
And
go ahead.
That's okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when we were addressing the code and how we were changing it with regards to how the council behaved, in a very short period of time, I was able to contact 5 to 7 cities. They were very happy to share their information. I don't think this task is going to be as big as you think it is, or the information will be as difficult to retrieve as you think it is. So we're not looking to labor, staff with the extra work, but it's what we need.
Okay, so so June 4th, I guess, is that our next council meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the best way to go ahead is let us get a game plan together, and we'll give you an update in the weekly. I mean, the next thing we need to do, really, I mean, if this was a go tonight, is we would set our community meetings and then get the word out. So that part of it, we still need time to do. But the community meetings could be all in one week. It could be a Tuesday night and a Thursday night. We've got some flexibility there. So let us huddle, and we'll get back to you in the weekly. And Jerry, I hope it's as easy as that. Okay. What I understand from Sandy is that we've got to drill down and get some financial data that may not be readily published, in a city's budget document, and talk to people and have them do some analysis.
Well, if you need help, I'm happy to come down. I'm sure there's some basic questions that, Warren has a good background in this also, and part of the ad hoc committee. That's why I thought we made a good team. Maybe he can come up with some key questions with you and Nita for what we want to ask to get the information we want. And if you need help asking those questions, I'm happy to come in and spend a day here to do that. But also, the last question I have is the mechanism we're going to use to inform the community about these meetings.
Well, we'd use all the free mechanisms we have at hand. We would use our website. We would make contact with all of our media friends. We would do press releases. We would. That's a start right there. Okay.
So on the when you come back, then maybe on June 5th, you'll do the weeklies, and on June 5th, I guess maybe we'll have this as an agenda item update. Is that what you're thinking? And then we could go through maybe a proposed workshop schedule, whatever we have. Does that seem reasonable then?
I think it does. I think that if we're going to do research, we should have it done by then. That's 2 weeks. And I think we would have. And we're not, because we're not bullying. I definitely, we're just kind of giving you the demands. You got to fight back. So if you don't, it's like, we'll take no too, and we'll work through that. But I want to try and be forceful to get on a timeline that we all think is achievable. No, if we don't have this by June 4th, then that would be 2 weeks lost, in my mind. So I'm all about charging ahead. Cool. This is very, very important to the community. So first steps first.
Mayor Pro Tempo.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if we couldn't have a parallel path. The recommendation was for staff to seek authority to move ahead with the planning and execution of 2 community workshops in June. Could we not go ahead and look at scheduling those during this next 2 weeks at a date and so on and so forth, so that it's ready to go when we have this information?
If that's what the council wishes, absolutely.
Well, I'm pushing. See, I'm with you there, but then I think Jerry's saying, "Hey, look, I want to get out there and help. If I have numbers, I'm there." And that's why we're kind of pushing Angie, saying, "Can you get us numbers by then?" So I think that's kind of a 3-way issue.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but if we come to the conclusion with the data that we don't support this, then I don't want to have to go out. I don't want to have meetings already set up. I mean, if we're going to go with an ad hoc committee where there doesn't have to be any kind of a notice other than the mechanisms we talked about using here, then that's probably good. But if we're going to have to actually announce a meeting, I'm not sure that I'm there yet, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, so I'm not advocating that we announce meetings, but the staff could get them set up.
Schedule them, I see.
And schedule them. Okay. And then, depending on how this comes out,
sure,
at our next meeting, we'll give it a go or not.
Right.
But they could be at least scheduled.
That's a good idea.
Okay, the other item that Councilmember Kuzma,
I'm fine with the discussion. I think that I would like City Manager Angie, if you can go over the dates again, though. I think those are the real key things we have to be, as Mayor had asked. I don't remember really hearing all the dates.
Yes. We're looking at the month of June to be our outreach month. Okay. So you just think June outreach. That's when we're gathering all the community input. Early July, say, we don't, in July, we've got one council meeting, and that is, I think it's July 18th or 16th. It's the third Monday.
Right.
So early July, somehow we will, it's either going to be go or no go. And I'm not going to put a date on that. Let's just call it early July. late July is, or by the council meeting, will be the final determination for the tax to go on the ballot. I mean, the
measure
to go on the ballot. So, you know, I guess July is just go or no go month. And then it actually the ballot language needs to be to Orange County by August 10th. So you know, we need to familiarize ourselves with the process of putting the measure on the ballot.
Yeah, it's actually not just the ballot measure language, but the arguments as well. So the ballot measure language has to be finalized in time for people to have an opportunity to submit the arguments for and against. So a couple weeks at least ahead of August 10th.
Okay.
So yeah, timeline's pretty tight then, so that's my worry on this whole thing. So I understand what Councilmember Graham Mejia wants, and I don't, you know, I support that as well. So I understand that there's going to be a bit of legwork that has to happen, but I think there'll be enough time for us to review it.
So with what Councilmember Cruz-Meadows said, though, on August 10th, if it has to be in, we back off 2 weeks there to get arguments. And who specifically writes the arguments?
More than 2 weeks? Sorry, I'm just looking up the calendar to see if it's 2 weeks or more. So there's a priority set forth in the election code of who can write the ballot arguments. The city council can write the ballot arguments, and you have priority if you want to. And then there's a series of other groups or entities, with the bottom being individuals, who can write ballot arguments and submit them. And then the elections official, presumably the city clerk, who would normally be your elections official, is the one who determines if there are competing ballot argument submittals at the same level of the hierarchy. Then she would select which one goes on the ballot. And so there's a chance to submit arguments in favor, a chance to submit arguments against, and then a chance for rebuttals.
So let's do this, because that's a lot. I would like on the June 3rd meeting or 4th, whenever the next, we need to have that critical path, as Warren has called out very specifically, and have it backed off under our go, no go timeline. I think that's critical. Warren, did you have anything else?
That's it. Back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. The last item here is the ad hoc committee. We didn't get that squared away. Jerry Moore and I would really, it would be very helpful if you guys would step up and do that it seems like you would. Are you guys interested? Would you be able to help?
I'm fine. If Warren's good, I think we can incorporate it into the ad hoc committee we already have going.
Warren?
Yeah.
Okay. With that, any council members have any other comments before I close this off? And city manager or city attorney, this was a discussion. Does the recommendation have to be brought into a motion for you guys to move ahead?
No, it's just direction to staff.
Fair enough. We're going to go ahead and thank you, everybody, for your input on that. We're going to move on to item 10, mayor and council initiated business for council announcements. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay, Councilmember Mejia.
City manager, I had a call from a resident today regarding an issue that he needed some answers on, and he was bothered by the fact that he didn't have a direct voicemail for each of us. Is that something we could do, or for the council members who are interested in that?
I think so. We'll have to ask Cassie on that one.
Okay. And she's not here. He just was uncomfortable. Yeah, he was uncomfortable not wanting to leave the message with staff. Said he wanted to leave it specifically for me. What the purpose was is irrelevant. And so I told him I would ask to see if we could do that. And it's looking like it might be a good chance. So, moving on. I'd like to ask to have agendized for a meeting in the very near future the $280,000 that was set aside for the trash lawsuit for public outreach. and we can go into the specific later. I've spoken with the city manager regarding this issue, and also Mayor Pro Tem Poe. I'd like to ask for the council's support in having that come forward. I think it's something that the council needs to be aware of and maybe readdress. And so I'd like to see if we can agendize that soon. As far as the Long Beach Animal Control, that's not the first time that I've heard that an animal laid for 3 days or more in the person's yard. And when we addressed this back at the time when we renewed the contract, I brought up those concerns. Not only that, but if you think about it, Long Beach has stepped up the licensing for dogs. And so I know that there's been more money being made off of Los Alamitos, and yet we're still receiving the same low standard of service. And I don't think that's acceptable. I don't know what our options are, but I definitely think that we need to look into that. And to Alice, I'm sorry that you had to have that happen. We had hoped that we addressed that when we brought it up with the renewal of the contract, but it doesn't seem we've made any headway with that, so we'll see what we can do. I'd like to ask that with our new website, as Janelle asked from Southern California Edison, that we keep an update. Maybe we have a little section for things as they come, especially during summertime when we're going to have the shortages. That's something that the people who use our website would like to probably have access to. I attended vector control, and one of the things that we're addressing there is the grand jury is looking at special districts to see whether or not they are something that is a good thing for the district. And so vector control was one of two that was found to be a rather acceptable option to some of the other districts that were not quite as beneficial to the residents as they would have hoped to be. So they're formulating a response to that, and as that progresses, I will keep updating the council as I have more and more information. Also, I'd like to request again, I know we're on that tight schedule like we talked about, but if we're going to be addressing ballot issues, I'd like to have the street revitalization addressed in a ballot measure. If we can get that on there. Like I said, I want to support the council if it's the will of the people, but it's an awful lot of money to be spending, and that's a way that we can be all on the same page, because I think we're all here to do what the residents want and the businesses want. So I would like to ask that we can get moving on that, because we know now that we've just spoken with Angie about this other ballot issue, there's a lot that has to be done. So I would like to ask, it wasn't on this agenda, and Angie, I know you got your hands full, but if we can have it at the next one so that we can address it in a timely manner, this might be a little bit easier for us to do. There's not quite the research. We've already got all the numbers and such, and I think it would benefit. I think it would benefit the community, and then if we make that decision, we know we're doing what they want. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Stevens.
All right. Ever since Jerry got on the vector control, I don't know if that had a bearing or not, but I've seen the vector control spray units throughout the area.
But thank you, Ken. I appreciate that.
But my hat's off to vector control, because they are coming out and they are watching and spraying in a lot of the still waters that we have around, again, just to keep down the mosquitoes. So if you see anything at all, you know, give them a call and remind them. But I have seen their Jeep out doing a great deal. I wanted to get an update on the wheelchair ramps, too, the progress on when they're going to be completed, because they seem to be coming along fairly well. But, boy, I tell you, it's a little bit of a turning nightmare and everything over there.
Yes, Mr. Councilmember, we will be stirring up some dust for the next month in both Apartment Row and Carrier Row. They're two separately funded projects, so they're on parallel timing, but they're not the same project, because CDBG is funding the one in Apartment Row, non-CDBG funds in Carrier Row. So for the next month, you'll have a little bit of an interruption. Each ramp, though, is not taking as long as we expected. So each ramp is wrapping up in around 4 to 5 days each.
Wow.
What is the estimated time of completion just for Apartment Row?
We should be done at the end of this month, at the end of, I'm sorry, June. Completely done with 100% of all those ramps at the end of June.
In Apartment Row?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
It looks like they're way beyond that right now. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah, they've got quite a few to do.
Okay. Well, it seemed to be coming along really well, and a lot of the intersections that either had the smaller ramp or no ramps at all, we have those now, and so I know it's a big improvement. Went to the Orange County Fire Authority, and one of the major topics was the hand crew. And, you know, like every other organization, everybody's concerned about budgeting, and one of the issues was to keep on the 20-person hand crew or not, and we decided to keep it on, and it was the very same time that we had a few wildfires. And so the hand crew not only is instrumental in fighting some of the wildfires, but they're also instrumental in keeping some of the brush cleared away. And that's a concern that even a city like ours, that we don't have a lot of free space, but brush clearance in areas like underneath the Edison power lines and along the river channels, it's extremely important. And this is essentially what they will be doing when they're not fighting any kind of fires. So that will continue on for a 6-month period. In fact, it was encouraged that most cities should lean on them, bring them into the city, because they know how to do that clearance and abatement perfectly to keep from having fires along freeways, along the river, and underneath Edison power poles. One other event that I had the honor of going to, and I filled in for our mayor, Mayor Edgar, and it was to a Eagle Scout Awards dinner, and it was for Todd Daw and Christopher Meyer. And congratulations to both of them. Both of them are now Eagle Scouts. They're out of Troop 660. They've known each other for quite a long time, and the bonding that they had in doing their projects and the bonding within that troop and the scouting community was phenomenal. And so that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart, and whenever I see a celebration of success like this, it's always a pleasure to fill in for the mayor. So thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Poe.
Thank you. Last Wednesday, May 15th, I attended with our city manager and Councilmember Mejia the school district working group. And they laid out for us their plan for the, I'll call it the retrofit. As we all know, they've been going school by school with the bond money that was passed in upgrading all of the schools in our district. And Oak is the next one to be upgraded. And they were going over the whole program for us to show us what they were planning to do. And they're going to be looking at also the Oak Fields and the gym. The gym is jointly owned by the city, the school district, and the youth center. And it's old. It's 50 years old, and it needs a new floor and a lot of help. What was really interesting, and what I think we found to be very, where we're very pleased at, was that because of all of the use of Oak by the community in for recreation, for youth recreation, adult recreation, so on and so forth, that the school district was looking at the possibility of including some bathrooms that would be open to the public in one of the buildings that they won't be used for housing their equipment. And this is great that this school district's philosophy is not only to educate the children in our community to the highest degree, but that they recognize that most of the open space in our community is owned by the school district, and they're not reluctant to share with us, with the community, and are looking at ways to improve the community use. They will be meeting with the local user groups. Angie, or Corey, I guess, will be doing that, correct? And to let them know what's going on. to inform them of the plans and what needs to happen while the renovation is taking place, and the user fees and so on and so forth. So it's really nice to know that the school district wants to work with the community, wants to work with us and partner with us as a city. And we're happy to go to those meetings and move forward on that. I probably have the date wrong. Did they say they were going to start this? They were hoping to start it in the summer of 2012? Angie, did that, or the following summer?
No, it'll take 2 summers. It will start next summer, 2013.
13, right. And then, so they said it would take a summer, a school year, and a summer to complete. So I know that so many people in the community go to the Oak Fields for all of the different activities, the soccer, the softball, Friday night lights, and so on. So it's going to be a great thing for the community. And to see the Oak is an older school, and to see it renovated like the other schools have been. I also had heard the story from Alice about animal control, and I'm very concerned. I was very concerned. It is just not good for us to have dead, possibly diseased animals laying for a period of time. So we, anything we can do to take care of that.
Well, the first thing I want to say to the community is they can call city staff. I mean, and that's ultimately what happened is Alice made the call to Stephen Mendoza, Stephen called Cassie, and the possum was removed.
Right.
Now, I totally agree with you that contractually that is not good for the community. But I guess the best way to attack this would be to call the police department, and then the police department would call one of the city staff that's on call. And so during the weekend, I mean, that's probably the best way. Other than that, they can call city staff directly, and we will call Long Beach Animal Control and
make sure it happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Do you want to say how great Laurel Park looks? It's looking great. And it will be, the grand opening will be at our next council meeting. We'll be going there early for that. So people in the community are welcome to come to that. And Ken mentioned the ramps. I've had several people comment to me how happy they are that proper ramps are being built, because the ones that we've had in the past have been actually a joke. They were not a lot of them had ridges on them, and they would have actually been dangerous for someone that was handicapped or in a wheelchair to use. So real glad to see that work is going on. For the community that wasn't with us earlier when we were going through the budget plan, I think that I'd like to congratulate staff. I think that you've done a great job at presenting a balanced budget for us, and we've been able to incorporate a couple of projects that were near and dear to some of us, and so I'm real happy about that. I'd asked a while back if we could have OCFA bring the short movie about the drowning, and
June 4th.
Pardon?
June 4th, we just scheduled it.
Fabulous, fabulous. With the coming of summer and the use of pools and so on, I think that's really important. And lastly, I would ask that we close the meeting this evening in the name of Rush Labradette, who recently passed away. His memorial was held last Saturday. Rush was the son of August and Lyra Labradette, who were early founders of our community. They were very active. August was on one of our first city councils. I think he was elected in the second election. And Lyra was, for many years, headed up the Chamber of Commerce and was responsible for the first stoplight in Los Alamitos at Catella, and Los Alamitos Boulevard. And that's a story I won't go into, but it's a really fun story. Rush followed in his parents' footsteps. He was a designer and builder of many of the buildings in our community. He was responsible for many programs that benefited children when our community was not incorporated and we did not have a park and recreation department. And there wasn't a whole lot, as you grew up in Los Alamitos, as I did, there wasn't a whole lot of things to do here. And he was, anything that was for children or families, Rush was there to see that it happened. So I would like to ask that we close the meeting in his memory.
Right.
And also the other thing is, as I had said earlier, the website's awesome. I think everyone go to it. It really is an improvement over before. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Cusimano.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was able to attend at least partially attend two of the joint commissioners meeting, and I want to thank city staff for putting that on, as well as the commissioners for their volunteerism. And I think certainly I got something out of that in terms of communicating with the folks. And just wanted to, as a ad hoc committee, we'll certainly plan to meet with them more and bring that back to this body here. And with that, back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. A couple items real quick. Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, the budget meeting started at 5 today, and I was late. There's no doubt about it. Thank you, Marilyn,
That's
for
all right.
being here for me. But the issue that had to be dealt with was that the council had taken on the Coyote Creek project. If you go behind Oak Middle School, you see that there's this empty space. We've got about $1.4 million to do the park there, and the funding, the bond funding for that was due to expire June. The council said, hey, look, we need to get that secured, and they actually pushed through the project to get it to the California Public Utilities Commission because it's a Southern California easement, a Southern California Edison easement. And so there was a tremendous amount of effort that had to be done. They got it through Southern California Edison Real Estate, got it into the California Public Utilities. And so imagine if you had to have an item come to the city council and you went to Angie or her staff and you said, hey, look, I need the council to make a decision. And Angie says, it's going to take 6 months until we can put it on the agenda. That's what we're dealing with the California Public Utilities Commission, but we don't have 6 months because in 2 months the bond was going to expire for the $1.4 million. So the council muscled this thing through. Today they voted on the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy Board to extend it till the end of 2013 to give us more than enough time. And I was very glad. Something very interesting is happening in Rivers and Mountains Conservancy that I wanted to share with everybody. Redevelopment, as everybody knows, or a lot of people that follow it, the redevelopment agencies were obliterated. They were destroyed when the state said, look, we don't want you guys to do that anymore. At the local levels, it was set up to kind of help foster cities to grow and to modernize and to rural areas that can be utilized in a better, efficient manner to give tax subsidies to people that would come in and actually help. And then what would happen is the city would benefit by getting incremental tax on that. So it was a great mechanism, my personal opinion, to be able to help out cities to take on things. And in this council chambers, 2 meetings ago, we talked about Westminster had to lay off there are potentially up to 70 people that administered redevelopment in that city. And if you've been there, they've done a lot of beautiful work there. But one of the unintended consequences, and you say for Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, is that a lot of projects, like imagine if we have our project at Coyote Creek, and part of the deal is that a lot of these projects you need to have matching funds. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of the matching funds that all of these cities in the corridor from the Mount Baldy all the way down the San Gabriel River, which is what this conservancy handles, to the wetlands here in Seal Beach and Long Beach, everybody that has projects in play had planned on matching with redevelopment funds. So what's ending up happening now is so our item's on the agenda, right? And we're asking for ours to get extended. And right after that, there's another South LA city, to remain unnamed. You can look at it; it's public record. But they basically were asking to get their loan or their bond appropriation removed because they can no longer afford to participate in the program for matching funds. So right away, I got done with that meeting, and I called up Angie, and I said, Angie, on top of you're probably going to get 15 things at the council meeting tonight, which happened. We need to look at potential grant writing because what's happening now is on the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, that organization was started with $400 million worth of bond money, and we're down to the last $10 million. So 1.4 of that 10 is Los Alamitos. Everybody else is now starting to fall out on those last projects, and so there's about $1 to $3 million in jeopardy. If there was a city that was potentially had some cash like we do in our reserves, and you could turn 400 into 800 in a matching grant, and you could relate it to somewhere along this San Gabriel River, whether it's, our park is one part of it, Oak School backs up to that. And what you see right now is cities coming in not only just right on the riverbed, but the Long Beach Lagoon, where they have an infiltration of kind of wastewater issue going on there that's really, people used to actually swim in that. They're trying to get that remediated. You're seeing in cities up and down there, mile or two away from the riverbed, you're seeing projects called urban park remediation. Maybe we should take a look at that as a potential area of potential funding for us, since, again, it's almost like in the real estate market right now. If you have cash, you can go into the game. We do have some. We've talked about utilizing. I'm not threatening the 300 plus thousand for what we've said to modernize, but there's an area for potential options. And some cities are backing out, but cities like us, I'm starting to see, are looking at this, go, man, maybe there's an opportunity. And it's a very short window between now and June. They're either, if any of these cities give their money up and they're not spoken for, it'll get turned back to the state, which maybe is a good thing philosophically. But as a small city, this could be a great opportunity that we wouldn't have normally had. So I just wanted to bring that back. Angie was, she listened to me on the phone call on the back, and so we'll see what happens. I'll keep you guys in the loop. On Wednesday, I've got an Orange County Sanitation District meeting. Kind of interesting dilemma is that I am actually up for the chair job this year. Oh, so I've been serving as the vice chair for the Sanitation District for the last 2 years. And so a little bit of the dilemma, to be quite honest, is with some of the stuff that I'm looking at in the future is I don't want to put the Sanitation District in jeopardy of having a turnover on the board. So I'm going to leave it into the hands of the Sanitation District board members and which direction they want to go on that. But I just wanted to let you know, is for the city of Los Alamitos, for us to be actually the chair of about a $500 million a year organization in Orange County, it would be great for us. And even hopefully for 2 years I would have it, and if not, there's a plan in place to deal with that. But I just wanted to let you guys know. Next month, we shift to our once-a-month council meetings, and that was something that I go to a lot of these inner Orange County city meetings, and it gets a lot of buzz. So there's a lot of council members out there that really wish that it would only be once a month. We took a risk on this, so we're also praying that it isn't a meeting once a month that lasts till 4 in the morning. So but I have very high expectations. I think it's going to be very good. With that, I want to go ahead. I don't have anything else. I will say Jerry made a move that she wanted to agendize the $280,000 of the trash contract. No one else stepped up with her into that. I would just join her in that. Let's bring that forward to take a look at. What she's talking about there is that within the trash contract, there was an agreement in there for $280,000 for community spend. But it's discretionary. The city gets it, and some of it's earmarked for things. And I think, Jerry, where you're going with that, and I can understand that, it's worth talking about, is the council, usually the staff doesn't have decisions over $10,000, but we've given $280,000 over. We know they're doing great work by it, but it's something that we should just talk about consciously and make a decision. So with that,
I'm happy.
You're happy with that?
I just thought it was going to happen.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I assumed that it was.
We're all happy with it.
I just assumed it.
Okay. Oh, good. We are going to close in honor of Rush Labradette, but Angie, I'd just like to go ahead and hand it to you. Do you have anything else?
No, not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, great. With that, we are going to go ahead and adjourn in the name of Rush Labradette and to Monday, June 4th. Meeting adjourned.